On a cold November evening in 1971, Flight 305 lifted off from Portland International Airport, its destination, Seattle. Among the passengers was a man who would become an enigma for decades to come. Dressed in a black suit, white shirt, and thin black tie, he carried a briefcase and a folded overcoat. He approached the counter under the name Dan Cooper, but history would misreport it as D.B. Cooper, a name that would echo through time. As the plane ascended into the gray skies, Cooper calmly ordered a bourbon and soda. To the flight attendant passing by, he handed a note. Thinking it was a casual advance, she pocketed it without a glance.
"Miss," he whispered, "you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb."
In the confines of the lavatory, the attendant unfolded the paper with trembling hands. Scrawled in precise handwriting were Cooper's demands: $200,000 in unmarked bills, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle to refuel the aircraft. Failure to comply would result in the plane's destruction. The pilot relayed the message to air traffic control, setting off a chain of events that would baffle authorities for years. As the plane circled Puget Sound to buy time, passengers remained oblivious, told only that a minor mechanical issue delayed their landing. Below, FBI agents scrambled to assemble the ransom and parachutes, their minds racing to anticipate Cooper's next move. Upon landing in Seattle, Cooper allowed the passengers and some of the crew to disembark in exchange for the money and parachutes. With the cockpit crew remaining, he instructed them to plot a course for Mexico City, specifying an altitude of 10,000 feet and a speed no greater than 200 knots. The rear exit and its staircase were to remain unlocked. As the plane soared into the night, somewhere over the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest, Cooper did the unthinkable. Donning a parachute, he opened the rear hatch and leaped into the abyss, clutching the ransom tightly. The crew felt a sudden change in cabin pressure, confirming his exit. When the plane landed safely in Reno, Cooper was gone without a trace. For years, the FBI scoured the rugged terrain below the flight path. Search parties combed through forests, rivers, and mountains, but found nothing. It was as if Cooper had vanished into thin air. The case became the only unsolved air piracy in commercial aviation history, spawning countless theories and suspects. But what if the truth was far stranger than anyone could imagine? Deep within the woods, Cooper landed roughly but uninjured. As he gathered his bearings, a strange luminescence caught his eye. A soft blue glow emanating from between the trees. Drawn to it, he stumbled upon a shimmering portal suspended in the air, pulsating with otherworldly energy. Cautious yet curious, Cooper approached the portal. The air around it felt charged, tingling his skin. Behind him, the distant sounds of helicopters and search dogs grew louder. With few options, and the allure of the unknown beckoning, he stepped through. Instantly, he was enveloped in a vortex of light and sound. When he emerged, the forest was gone. Instead, he found himself in a sprawling metropolis unlike any he'd ever seen. Towering structures of glass and metal pierced the sky, and vehicles floated effortlessly above the ground. Confused and disoriented, Cooper wandered the streets. The people, if they could be called that, were humanoid but possessed features that were subtly different. Eyes that shimmered with iridescent hues, skin that seemed to absorb light. He tried to communicate, but his words were met with puzzled glances. Suddenly, a figure approached him. A woman with silver hair and eyes that mirrored the stars. "You're not from here," she said, her voice echoing in his mind rather than his ears. "Where am I?" Cooper asked aloud. "You're in Nexum," she replied telepathically, "a nexus point between dimensions. Few find their way here by accident." Realizing he still clutched the briefcase, Cooper opened it. To his astonishment, the money had transformed into luminescent crystals, humming with energy. The woman eyed them with a mixture of awe and concern. "Those are not meant for this world," she warned. "They could disrupt the balance of our dimension." Cooper, ever the opportunist, saw a new angle. "What can I get for them?" he inquired. She studied him carefully. "Perhaps a way home, or a new beginning here. But be cautious. Not all in Nexum are as accommodating." As days turned into weeks, Cooper navigated this strange world, using the crystals to barter and gain favor. He learned that Nexum was a convergence point, a melting pot of beings from countless realities. Time behaved erratically. What felt like days could be moments elsewhere. Back on Earth, years passed with no sign of Cooper. The legend grew, but the man was forgotten, relegated to the annals of unsolved mysteries. In Nexum, Cooper's cunning allowed him to amass influence. Yet he yearned for his own world. Approaching the woman once more, he asked, Is there a way back? She nodded solemnly. There is a portal, but it requires a sacrifice. The crystals must be returned, and you must leave behind what you've gained here. Weighing his options, Cooper decided. The allure of the unknown had been thrilling, but the familiarity of his own world called to him. Agreeing to the terms, he surrendered the crystals. As he stepped through the new portal, a flash of light blinded him. When his vision cleared, he found himself in a bustling city street. But something was off. The cars were sleek and silent. Holographic advertisements filled the air, and people wore devices that projected interfaces before their eyes. Approaching a newsstand, he glanced at the date, November 24th, 2021, exactly 50 years since his jump. Shocked, he realized he had not returned to his own time. "Excuse me," he asked the vendor. "What city is this?" "You're in Seattle," the man replied, eyeing him strangely. "You okay, buddy?" Cooper's mind raced. The world had advanced beyond recognition. He was a man out of time, a relic lost in the future. As he wandered the streets, snippets of news caught his attention. Mentions of climate accords, interplanetary probes, and a global digital currency. He searched for any trace of his past life, but found none. Even the legend of D.B. Cooper had faded, replaced by new mysteries and figures. Desperate, he sought out technology experts, hoping to find a way back. But his story was met with skepticism. Without identification or records, he was invisible in this society. One night, as he sat on a park bench overlooking the glowing cityscape, the silver-haired woman appeared beside him. "I warned you," she said softly. "You knew this would happen," he accused. "I knew the portal would not return you to the exact point you left," she admitted. "Time in Nexum is fluid." "Why help me at all?" he asked. "Because every action has its consequences," she replied, "and every traveler leaves an impact." She extended her hand, revealing a single luminescent crystal. "With this, you can make a choice. Stay here and forge a new life, or attempt once more to return, knowing the risks." Cooper hesitated. The future was daunting, but it was also a land of new opportunities. The skills that had served him before could serve him again, perhaps even more so in this advanced world. "I'll stay," he decided, taking the crystal. "Very well," she nodded. "But remember, the past is a shadow. Don't let it consume you." With newfound resolve, Cooper immersed himself in the future. He studied its technologies, adapted to its customs, and slowly built a new identity. The crystal proved invaluable, its energy harnessed in ways he was only beginning to understand. Yet late at night, he couldn't shake the feeling of displacement. The city lights, though beautiful, were cold and distant. The people moved with a detachment, absorbed in their virtual realms. One day, he overheard a conversation about quantum anomalies, ripples in space-time, that scientists were detecting with increasing frequency. Rumors circulated about experiments to manipulate these anomalies to control the flow of time itself. Intrigued, Cooper sought out the research facility at the heart of these rumors. Posing as a historian, he gained access to their archives. There, he discovered files on the Nexum portals, referred to as temporal gates, and the potential they held. Realizing this could be his chance to return home, he infiltrated the facility under the cover of darkness. Navigating through sterile corridors and high-security labs, he reached the core chamber, where a swirling vortex crackled with energy. As alarms blared, he made a split-second decision. Clutching the crystal, he leaped into the vortex. This time, the journey was turbulent. Visions of past and future flashed before his eyes. A kaleidoscope of moments, both lived and unlived. When he finally landed, he found himself back in the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest. The air was fresh, the sounds familiar. In the distance, he heard the rotors of helicopters and the barking of dogs. Checking his watch, it was still the night of his disappearance in 1971. Elation surged through him. He had returned. But as he prepared to move, figures emerged from the shadows. Agents in dark suits, weapons drawn. "Dan Cooper," one of them announced. "You're coming with us." Stunned, he raised his hands. "How did you find me?" "We've been tracking temporal anomalies," the agent replied. "You're not the only one who slipped through time." As they led him away, the silver-haired woman watched from afar, unseen. A faint smile played on her lips. "Every action has its consequences," she whispered to the wind. In a clandestine facility, Cooper was interrogated about his travels, the portals, and the crystal. Realizing the knowledge he possessed, the government saw both a threat and an opportunity. Weeks turned into months as he was kept in confinement, pressed for information. But Cooper was clever. He negotiated, offering insights in exchange for his freedom. Eventually, a deal was struck. Under a new identity, he would work with a covert team, exploring the potentials of time travel and dimensional shifts. His past would be erased, his future uncertain but filled with purpose. Immersed in this shadowy world, Cooper found a strange solace. The mystery that began with a daring hijack had led him to the forefront of humanity's next great frontier. Yet, as he delved deeper, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was still a pawn in a larger game. A game orchestrated by forces beyond his comprehension. One night, while poring over data, he noticed a pattern signals that matched the energy signature of the Nexum portal. Tracing them, he realized they were emanating from within the facility itself. Confronting his superiors, he demanded answers. Reluctantly, they revealed the truth. The portals were not random but engineered by an advanced civilization seeking to manipulate time for their own ends. "Why involve me?" Cooper asked, suspicion rising. "Because you were the first," they admitted. "An unwitting test subject. And now, you're crucial to opening the gateway fully." Feeling betrayed, Cooper knew he had to act. If these portals were being used to alter history, the consequences could be catastrophic. In a daring move, he sabotaged the facility's systems, triggering a controlled overload. As chaos erupted, he sought out the core where the main portal was housed. Facing the swirling vortex one last time, he understood what he had to do. Using the crystal, he could destabilize the portal, sealing the rift between dimensions. As security forces closed in, he stepped into the core. The energy was overwhelming, but his resolve was firm. Focusing all his will, he shattered the crystal within the portal. A blinding flash consumed everything. When the light faded, the facility was silent, the portal gone. Cooper found himself standing alone in an open field. The facility, the agents, the portals, all had vanished. The sky above was clear, stars twinkling innocently. Had he succeeded? Had he reset the timeline? Making his way to a nearby town, he picked up a newspaper. The date read, November 25th, 1971. There was no mention of a hijacking, no legend of D.B. Cooper. Relieved yet saddened, he realized he had erased his own infamy. His daring act had prevented untold dangers, but at the cost of his identity. Blending into society, he lived out his days quietly, a man with memories of a life that never was. The mystery of D.B. Cooper had been solved, but the world would never know. And somewhere, in the fabric of reality, a silver-haired woman watched, a hint of melancholy in her eyes. "Balance restored," she whispered, before fading into the ether.